Welcome into this episode of Coach's Corner. Jordan Woodruff with you, and good to have you along. And we are joined today, and first time I've had a chance to interview the girls soccer coach, Shelby Kriech. Good to have you along, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about your team, and that's kind of where I started with Ben when we talked to him. I'm sure there's introductory and everything else that goes on with you being here, but talk about your team. And let's talk about kind of what you expect as far as the girls this year, what you have, and where you think your goals are.
Okay, so I'm excited. We have a pretty big roster. We have 45 girls, and the talent ranges from being kind of new with it to having years of club experience. My expectations just in general are one, that we're progressing, right? We want to see the progress on the field, but we have the expectation like you're a student first, and that's super important to me and the assistants. We have some awesome assistants, Tim McDaniel and Kevin Shellhorse. And we have some great captains who are, the expectation for them is to help lead the team, right? So we have 4 captains. We have Callie Van Heusen, Carly Hill, Emma Steichen, and Jaden Lowler, and they're all great leaders. Also, some expectations for the girls is we've got, changes in district this year, and so the hope is that we always go in with this, like, positive attitude that, we've progressed, we've increased our, soccer terminology, our skills on the field, and so when we go into a game, we go in with the expectation, like, this could be our game, and this should be our game. And I'm excited to see that.
Sometimes you don't know exactly because you're not on the field yet, but your identity, right? And I mean, all sports, your teams have a certain identity. Are you starting to see with some practices maybe the identity of what you want to do coming together?
I think so. I felt like in off season we had some really good chance to see the consistency, and then with the weather and some of the illness recently, it's kind of been a little less consistent. But I will say, I think the identity, or I guess what we're trying to promote, right, is this positive mentality that also is backed by open communication on the field and off the field. Because if we can grow as a team together, then it shouldn't really matter who's on the field. But, there's that support and that welcoming environment, and that's kind of what I'm hoping.
Yeah, and as far as the game itself, I mean, you defensive-minded, offensive-minded?
Fair point.
When it comes to that part of it, like, where do you, because, I mean, soccer can be played in a lot of different ways. Right. There's never a lot of scoring, or there's not supposed to be, but, a good offensive team may get a lot of cracks at shot on goal, where a defensive team may sit back. You may only get 2 shots on goal in a game, but you want to make them count. So what's kind of your philosophy?
I have a very traditional defensive background. When I played, that was my position on the field. But I do think we'll be pretty defensive-minded. However, we're trying to instill this idea that even though we're defensive-minded, that doesn't mean we sit back and take the attack from the other team.
Right.
And so when we do have that ball, I still want even though we may be formation-wise a little bit more defensive, I still want us going forward and attacking strong, and that's hopefully that.
No, it's something that always interests me because, like, soccer, the time of possession can be, I'm saying football, we always talk about time of possession, but, it's pretty clear that the defense can get it back if they stop them in 3 plays. Soccer, you could sit there and pass the ball around forever if your defense doesn't go up there and get a stop and get the ball back. So I always, the intricacies of soccer, very similar to a lot of sports, but very different in a way too.
I like that about soccer. I like that it's so complex, and I consider it kind of fluid because how one person plays is completely different from how another plays, and then the experience of whether you played street soccer or not, definitely you can see it in whether you use these like short little choppy steps versus what kind of move you pull on on an opponent. And so, yeah, I completely agree.
All right, let's talk about the girls. You mentioned the captains, but talk about kind of who you think your impact players, really outside of maybe the captains, are going to be this year.
So we have a really strong goalie. I think that's a huge impact, right? We need to be able to defend the goal. That's the main, besides scoring, right? That's the main point. And her name's Madison. She's great. Outside of the captains who are great leaders, we have some seniors who are here. We have Tally Boyer. We have some sophomores and some juniors. Some sophomores that come to mind would be Rylan Rader, Melanie Schaefer. They were strong last year, and the hope is that they'll continue to be strong this year. And they work really well with the seniors that we also have on board.
Yeah.
So.
And how hard has it been with all the, like I said, it's been a really weird January to start practices. I mean, we talked to Ben about this as well, but trying to kind of legislate, we have this many people sick, and we're not going to have school today because we're sick. And then the indoor facility's not ready yet. We're going to talk about that momentarily. So it's cold. We can't go outside today because the wind chills in Oklahoma are like this, or we're getting snow, and we're out days with that. So how hard has it kind of been to kind of be normal as far as practicing and getting everybody on the same page in the month of January, Ben?
I think it's honestly, it's kind of tricky. I've been the assistant coach for a while now, and then now being the first year being a head coach is trying to set the boundaries. I'm a big, I like to over communicate, and maybe that's, to answer your question, I over communicate. Like, here's what we're going to do today. So I try to tell the girls, like, here's plan A. If A fails, here's plan B. So a couple weeks back, before we had that virtual day for the flu, originally we were supposed to have 30-something girls at practice. Well, we get to practice and we end up with less than 20. And I was like, well, just to minimize some contact and risk of others getting sick, I was like, let's just clean the locker room. And so we deep cleaned that locker room because we made sure that if we can't be on the field or conditioning somewhere in the gym, maybe that we try to use the time a little bit wisely. We've been trying to also do some soccer terminology because in order to be a team and play really effectively, we always have to have the same language, right? And so when we have the hard weather days where we can't be outside because it's below 20 degrees, right? We don't want to risk any illness or injuries or just being out in the cold for too long. So we're trying to promote this, like, hey, we're on the same page because we all know what square means. What's a square pass? Where is the location on the field? Are you in the final third? What does that look like? So taking it from being physically on the field to now we're putting in the mental aspect of, can you also think for yourself on the field and be all on the same page?
Yeah. No, I feel like the terminology is something with soccer. I think football is the same way, that everybody be on the same page terminology, because you can go to 3 or 4 different schools and the way they communicate on certain things, it's almost like a foreign language to you because what they say is different. So that's pretty cool that you're trying to get everybody saying, hey, here is our language.
Right, yeah. And that's kind of what we're hoping to promote, is this idea that, like, we are one team and we should all speak the same language. We should all be on the same page.
Yeah.
And hope the results will follow, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, the next thing for you, and I always ask anybody that has been in the assistant role, most everybody in high school sports, they were an assistant and then they were elevated up to a head coach. But as an assistant, you move over to the head coaching role. I don't know if anybody's ever quite ready for it. This aspect of the game, you understand. Like, that's something that you love. That's why you do it. But it's the stuff outside of the game. The little things I don't think anybody ever is ready for when it comes to paperwork and fundraising and all this different stuff. So what's it been like adjusting from that assistant to head?
So previously, working with Mike, and at one point it was just the two of us. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't the head coach at the point, obviously, but he kind of had helped kind of show me what he did behind the scenes. Now, by no means was that what I was, expecting as much when I got to this role, very luckily. But it's been a lot. It's been, making the phone calls to confirm, like, hey, so we are still on for this game. I don't have the schedule yet. Can I confirm this? Or going back to enforcing this, like, you're a student athlete role. Mm-hmm. Now we're contacting, unfortunately, sometimes you got to contact parents. Right. Like, it's a lot. But I don't hate it. You know what I mean? Like, the passion is there. It's a lot to balance. It's a lot to go home, and sometimes you kind of sit there and you're like, well, did I make the right decision? Like, could I have done this a little bit differently to benefit the girls? And the hope is that, with every decision, it positively impacts the girls, and that's the hope.
And then when you move over, and I always say it's, I use the basketball. I had a basketball coach tell me it's 6 inches over, but it's a whole world away.
Right.
That's kind of what they say. But when it comes to the actual game part itself, you don't want to just totally up in the apple cart, right? I mean, you want to build on maybe the things that were done well.
Right.
But what are some of the changes that you feel like you've made or you're going to make going into this season since from moving from the assistant to the head coaching role?
I think one of our changes is going to be formation. And I think for some of the girls, it's getting comfortable playing multiple positions and not fixated on one. And that's a big progression to actually be comfortable not just playing defense but also playing offense. One of the seniors had told me, she was like, this is the first time I've actually learned how to play defense, and she's traditionally a very strong forward, and so and that was kind of eye-opening, like, oh wow, like I guess I hadn't realized that's what I had been doing, because my philosophy is, everybody should know how to play every sport or every spot, because you don't know when maybe there's an injury or whatever it might be, you got to fill in for it. And so that was kind of a...
Well, outside of injuries, talk about the importance in soccer and how much of an advantage it is if you do know how to play more spots on the field.
Oh, for sure. With being able to play more than one position, there's less need to... There's not a panic. You can adapt quickly on the field. Maybe you play a team that's super strong defensively, and so maybe we have to, switch the formation just a little bit. So there's less question on like, well, are we playing a 4-3-3 today? So we play the center three tight, versus if we go a 4-4-2, well, now we're playing these outside wide wings. What does that look like? And so as long as if we know that versatility, then there's less questioning, and that confidence that comes from the girls is huge. That there's less hesitation in their decisions. There's like, oh, okay, like maybe I make a small mistake, but whatever, I know what I'm doing, and I think that's huge.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. And I think the last thing we want to get into is the facility, the new complex. It's looking great over there.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
It's probably the absolute worst thing for you and Ben right now, knowing that it's going to aid soccer so much, and it's that time that not knowing exactly when you're going to be able to get into and play and be able to practice and everything on there. But talk about the excitement that you have to finally be able to utilize that here, we're hoping, in the upcoming months.
Oh, I'm so excited. I know the girls are so excited. The district's been great at been giving us a spot to be at, and this gives us an option later. So now right now we are at the football field, and each team gets a half. And which is a challenge, because when you have, we're at 45 girls, they're at a larger roster, it's a tight quarters. And when you play a game, you want to be able to practice the way that you play. And so you want to be able to play on a larger field and use it. But the girls are super excited. They're excited to kind of have a place that, I don't want to claim it like as our own, because it is multi-purpose, but that's new, and that feels like something to take pride in, you know what I mean? And so it's going to be great. They're excited so that if there is weather problems, we do have a place to practice and take advantage of, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's going to be certainly a big benefit, and we talk about right now cold weather. It'd be nice to be able to go in there. The sickness, it really doesn't matter with that. But I mentioned to Ben the warm weather. Even when it's real hot, or when there's storms that come through. You can't go outside in lightning, but you can go in an indoor facility. So just the little things like that are going to make a big difference. And there may be a storm system come in 3 straight days, you're unable to practice.
Yeah.
Well, now you can actually go in there. You're going to be able to practice, which is going to mean a lot.
It'll be fantastic, because even if and we won't be the only ones benefiting from it, right? So, and that's even better, is the fact that everybody gets they have some, skin in the game kind of thing. Like, everybody's going to benefit, and I think that's the biggest advantage, is like, we don't have to take a day off. That's the excitement. It's
going to be interesting, though, I feel like, when we do have the convergence of all the sports and there is that rain day and everybody wants to get in the facility. I want to be there that day to figure out, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun for the coaches as well to kind of figure out how do we want to utilize this so every kid can take advantage, every sport can take advantage. That's going to be probably the fun thing to watch. I'm glad I'm not making those decisions, but that's one thing. I'm sure you guys have talked about it, but you don't really know what it's going to be like until it happens.
Right, it's the trial and error kind of situation. But most of the coaches, or at least the ones that I know, I feel like are great at communication, and we might laugh it off when we end up bumping into each other, or a soccer ball's crossing the track that's supposed to be inside of it. But you know what? It'll be okay.
You're just helping the hurdlers out if they have to jump over the soccer ball, right?
Give them an extra obstacle.
And who knows? Maybe one of those kids will kick a ball, and all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, you need to be playing this sport."
Come play for me. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, you just never know with that. Well, hey, it's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and looking forward to seeing what you can do as the head coach here at girls soccer in Ponca.
I appreciate you guys having me here. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Shelby Kriech, with us. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Coach's Corner. I want to say thanks to Chris behind the camera, Jordan Woodruff saying so long, and until next time, go Cats.